Hi, Mayor. This is Chris.
Chris, can you hear us now?
I can. Can you hear me?
So our Zoom account, our YouTube account went to a commercial, so. Can you hear us now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, thank you. Okay, good. All right, so we're good. Okay, all right, go ahead. Thank you. I apologize for that. We'll continue on. Yeah, if you don't mind, start at the very beginning for us. Yeah, okay, we'll start the hearing over, Chris, okay?
Oh, sounds good.
All right. All right, so I'm going to open the public hearing on the Norterra project. Does the council have any ex parte communication?
No, Mr. Mayor. No.
Okay, hearing none, we're going to open it up to the applicant to go ahead with your project.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Tamara Thompson. I'm with the Land Group. We're off of step 462 East Shore Drive in Eagle. Tonight, I'm here representing the developer, which is TG Development. They send their apologies. They wanted to be here in person, but due to non-COVID related health issues, they are unable to travel. Oh, I gotta turn it on. That's gonna help. This is the vicinity map for the property. It is approximately 48.43 acres. It is generally located on the northeast corner of Canada Road and State Street, Highway 44. It currently consists of 2 legal parcels. It's primarily ag with a single family dwelling and associated structures. The existing home and those associated structures will be removed with development. The property is located outside a special flood hazard zone, and the drain that bisects the property will be piped with development, the one on the north side. The site is highlighted in gray here on this drawing. The property is currently zoned RUT in Ada County. The property is in the City of Star impact area, and the path of annexation exists to the north and the east. And you'll see the darker blue dash lines is the city limits, or it was at the time of application. I don't know if it's changed. The property has a comprehensive plan, future land use designation of compact residential on the northern boundary and central business district on the south, which is the purple color along Highway 44. The development applications before you tonight propose to annex the property from RUT to the City of Star with a development agreement. And we're looking to rezone the northern 19.53 acres to R7 and the southern 28.9 acres to CBD, Central Business District. The proposed zoning is consistent with the current comprehensive plan and the current and approved surrounding land uses adjacent to the property. Colored them the same color for you. This is our master plan for the development. It includes a preliminary plat, which in total is 149 total lots. And of that, there's 20 single-family detached units along the northern boundary. And I want to point out that those line up 1-to-1 with the homes, with the existing homes on the north side. There's 98 townhouse lots. So in total, that's 118 total residential units. All of these units are for sale product. There's 23 commercial lots, which total roughly 238,000 square feet of commercial on the southern portion and 8 common lots. The single family homes on the northern boundary are the same as the Ensley Court just to the east. And those lined up 1-for-1 there as well to the homes to the north. The amenities that are included is a park with a picnic shelter. And that is, I don't know if you can see up here, this little area right here. And there's a pedestrian paths and other open spaces. And total, we're over 21% open space with 17% usable. Here's another view just to give you a little bit different view where you can see some of the existing houses, and don't get too caught up in the Lego lookings of it. You know, they won't look like that. That's just to give a representative. Another feature that we have, we have in different colors, the detached single-family units along the northern boundary, and then the townhouse units are here. There's a pathway that runs the entire length from Canada to Highbrook. And then the commercial portion, we are showing a assisted living facility on the western half of the commercial side, and then more traditional commercial here with some office up on that top part. The development will be accessed via two approaches on Canada Road. One of those approaches goes to the residential area and one goes to the commercial portion. There is one cross access that exists to the north at Quinn Cannon Way. There are two approaches onto Highbrook, although the southernmost one right here, we're still working with ACHD on how that one would be configured. It may end up being right in only instead of right in, right out. But we're still working on that. And then one approved approach on Highway 44, which is roughly in the middle of the property. And there's a development on the other side that it aligns with. This is just a landscape plan to give you an overview of the landscape plan. And then here, this yellow line, I have this, the new public road is highlighted in yellow, and the additional, all the other roads and accesses throughout will be private alleyways and private streets or private driveways. The public street will be constructed to ACHD standards, and the private streets and alleyways will be constructed to the City of Star and the fire department standards. The commercial lots will have common drives and cross-access throughout the area, and an owners association will be established to provide long-term maintenance of the streets and the common areas. The single-family homes, the detached, will be similar to the subdivision to the north in Saddlebrook. Here we have some elevations, some concept elevations of the townhouse units. Those are primarily duplex units, but again, they're for sale products, so there'll be a property line. And another view just looking down, and this one is from the grocery store side, the Albertsons that was approved on the east side of Highbrook Way, just kind of showing, again, there's a open space with a nice walkway that can get both people in the commercial side and in the residential side to the grocery store. Come back to that one. The commercial uses include senior housing, car wash, fuel station, general retail, medical office, restaurants, and a hotel. And we're requesting the commercial uses be approved by City Council tonight as part of the development agreement. The dimensional standards for the residential portion are proposed on this slide. And we agree with staff that the rear setback of the detached homes on the north boundary maintain that 15-foot. It was our intent to have it that way. Unfortunately, our chart didn't originally show that. So what I have here is a breakdown where we have the proposed and we've separated it between if it's a detached unit or an attached unit. So we're asking for these dimensional standards to be approved tonight as well. And I got out of order here, sorry. Our proposed design is consistent with the city's Unified Development Code and the comprehensive plan. We've read the staff report and we agree with staff's recommended conditions of approval, and we respectfully request your approval tonight.
Okay, any questions of council to the applicant at this time?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Keys?
so Ms. Thompson, you talked about building the roads to ACHD standards and then the private roads to City of Star standards. Just want to make sure you're clear that the ACHD standards in Star are different than they are in most of the rest of the ACHD area, in most of the rest of the county.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Keys, yes, we are familiar with that.
And I'm curious why you have a road here that ends in a cul-de-sac instead of connecting onto Deer Haven. I'm certain that city staff must have made you aware of our ECAMP plan, and it seems like that's in, it's not compliant with that. I'm curious why you've done that.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Keys, that is at the request of ACHD. They did not want that road to connect.
And so I'm thinking that's going to drive traffic north into the adjacent subdivision so they can get around and get onto Deer Haven. Are you thinking something different?
We do have a traffic study, and we've talked to ACHD about that, and they're not seeing that with the traffic study, and that's not being substantiated as far as having cut through traffic.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah, so I saw in the ACHD staff report, you know, they both ITD referenced the TIS, and we haven't seen the TIS, but both ACHD and ITD had some concerns, and I'm wondering if those been addressed.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Keys, they have been addressed. We are working closely with ITD and with ACHD. The only thing we have outstanding with ACHD right now is that one right in, right out, that southern one on Highbrook Way.
Okay, and I know that in the ACHD report, it referenced something called Access D and Access E, but because I haven't seen the report, I wasn't able to find anything on the drawings here labeled Access D and Access E. Can you show me where those are?
And I'm sorry, which is that for ITD?
The ACHD.
The
report.
ACHD one, I believe, you know, and I should have brought it with me. I have it on my computer. I could log in, but I think those two are, those are these two right here. Does that make sense from the comments that you're talking about?
Well, it almost seemed like they were talking about a second access onto Highway 44 that isn't in any of these graphics, but it was really unclear because all I have are words and.
Yeah, we didn't never have, we've always only had one access onto Highway 44. And I believe the comment here is on Highbrook on having two access points. We aligned these access points with the approved points for the Albertson Center to the immediate east. And they're just, we're still in discussions on this southern one right here.
Okay, and then they had some concerns about the accesses on a Canada Road that said that your TIS said were in compliance, and they said that they weren't in compliance. And I'm wondering if that's been addressed.
We have addressed that, and our traffic engineer is working with them. So we're working with Kittleson Engineering, and it's like 3% off. And so they're discussing that, but I know our traffic engineer is saying 3% is within the threshold. So I believe it's a non-issue.
And if the city was to work with ACHD and get approval to connect that dead-end street onto Deer Haven, would you and your clients have any issues with that?
don't.
No,
Mr.
no
Mayor.
issue with that, Mr. Mayor, City Council, no issue.
Okay, that's my client. On questions like total, redesigning something, I always like to ask my clients. So my client said no issue.
Okay. That's all I've got for now, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions of the applicant?
Mayor Chadwick,
Councilman Nielsen?
Ms. Thompson, could you go back to the slide where you have your landscape plan, please? It looks like this is almost representative of what is also in the architectural drawing, as far as the tree layouts go. I'm just curious, as you've put that together, have you referenced the Treasure Valley Tree Selection Guide and Star City Code as far as the content of landscaping and quantity of trees and things like that?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Nelson, I don't know if this plan shows that. This is more of a representative for the preliminary plat, but we will most certainly have everything in compliance with with city code.
Any further questions?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Hershey?
Yes, just two questions, and this is a perfect map for it. The southern exit in the middle, down to the bottom.
Onto Highway 44.
Yes, on Highway 44. Is that a right in, right out, a right out only? You didn't clarify how you get in and out of that. At least I missed it.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Hershey, in the short term, it's a right in, right out, left in.
All right, in the long term,
In the long term, they'll make it right in, right out.
only right in, right out.
With the improvements, I believe they're gonna be adding another lane on each side, and once that happens, it'll become a right in, right out.
Also, could you point out the open space for the housing? I just don't see it. I read it, but I don't see it.
So the open space, so the zoning line roughly is here. So you have this little area which has a pedestrian pathway that runs through. And then in this area, you have the park with a structure. And then it also allows us for the 21% to include these areas over here, but then it goes down to 17% on the usable.
Right, and also those townhouses. You showed some townhouses that I walk by every single day because they're in my neighborhood. So I don't know if that's ex parte. I don't think it is. With these townhouses, what's the square footage approximately on these townhouses? These duplexes?
Square footage is approximately 1,700 or so square feet.
Now, per unit or
Thank
for
you,
the entire
Dustin.
duplex?
That's my client, Dustin.
Oh, Mr. Gar, is that his name?
Mr. Gar, yeah, Dustin, is that's per unit, right? Not
Correct, per side,
per unit.
per side, per unit.
Per side. 1,700.
So they're all going to be 1,700?
Correct.
The ones you showed were 18 to 22. I just remember that meeting.
Those were representative elevations, but not the floor plan.
All righty, thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
So I appreciate it looks like you put a lot of thought into the pedestrian and bicycle plan. But traffic, and I really appreciate that. We need more of that. But I did see in Compass's, they had a concern.
Hang on a second. Mr. Gar, are you still on?
That's not my background. I am on, but somebody else has.
Okay, so whoever has their mic open might want to shut it off because there's a party going on over there, I think.
Those are attorneys.
That's my attorney. Chris, you want to shut your mic off? You're mute.
Yeah, I will. You'll just have to unmute me when you need me to talk.
All right, we will.
Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you.
Compass had a concern about the access point at Canada Road. That's just south of the New Street labeled there, between New Street and the State Street over by the assisted living nursing facility. Is is that a required access point or could that be removed? I'm asking that because just so people, it's one less point for a pedestrian or bicyclist to cross vehicle traffic.
Are you talking that southern,
I think this one here.
that one right there?
Yep, that one right there.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Salmonson? Is that how you
Yes,
say it?
yep.
That one is fairly important, and the reason being is that it separates the residential and the commercial traffic, and it does, within 3%, meet ACHD's dimensional standards for an access at that location. But if you can see here, that is the one that gets you into the commercial side without having to drive through the residential portion to get to the commercial. So it is important because for safety, it keeps those uses separate.
So you're bypassing so traffic is not going out onto State Street to access the commercial further east. Is that correct? Because if that's a nursing facility, more than likely it won't have a lot of traffic.
This is the nursing facility, and then there are some other buildings. There's more square footage could be offices or things like that.
Okay. And then my other question is related to pedestrian access also along State Street between, was it Quinn Cannon and Highbrook Way. Is there any place there for maybe a paved path, micropath or something to get, so the pedestrians don't have to walk all the way to one end or the other to get into the middle section there?
So if you'll follow me up here, so this is the Quinn Cannon, and there would be the opportunity to come here and to come down. There's the sidewalk right there, and then there's the opportunity to come down in here.
Yeah,
to go
but
either direction.
yeah, but if they're traveling on State Street along that sidewalk, will they cut through the trees to get into, say, I think there was a restaurant, like where that long southern, next to the hotel.
Well,
Yeah.
right here.
Yep. So if they wanted to go there, or if they wanted to go further west to that next building over, say there's McDonald's in there or something, and is there a way I guess I'm just asking if we could put in a micropath from State Street sidewalk into somewhere in the middle of that commercial development.
To have a micropath run north-south within here?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, probably in this area might be a better area. And yes, we'll have sidewalks that go that entire way, or pedestrian pathways.
You're asking for stubs, right? It's like stubbing into the back of those buildings.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Off of that main sidewalk.
Yeah.
I think that's what she's asking for is having stubs that go up so people can access that, especially those that may be in wheelchairs or
Right.
walkers or whatnot that are using that can access the commercial versus going all the way down and coming back.
Right. Yep.
I understand. Okay. So, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Salmonson, this is a concept plan. So once these are, who's the end users, once they land and we're working on those plans, then most definitely we can look at the pedestrian connections to that sidewalk along Highway 44.
Great. Thank you. A long way to get there.
Yeah, sorry, I just wasn't following.
Any further questions of the applicant?
And yes, I do have another one. So I know we did receive some public comment from Saddlebrook residents, and they said there was the November 2nd neighborhood meeting, and they were presented with a different plan. And so I just wanted to ask why if it's necessary to go back to the neighborhood and present an updated plan, or to give you the opportunity to share why you changed those original plans from,
You
What
want me
you-
to tell you why they changed original plans? Because I
okay?
told them they had to change original plans because it was 70% residential and 30% commercial in this project. So there was a lot of townhomes and stuff are fourplexes, right? I think she has it.
I
And so
brought it because I
It
knew.
didn't fit. See right here, Jennifer?
Right.
So that right there didn't fit what we had designed in our CBD. So when we had a meeting, I said, that's not going to fly. And so we need to come back with a different plan.
Mr. Mayor, that phase 2 and 3 in there are fourplexes?
Yes, those are all fourplexes.
Oh, yeah.
So,
So that's why they changed it, because after our conversation, they went back and listened to what we were talking about and made the changes on there.
yeah, so in the neighborhood meeting, this is the plan that we presented to the neighbors. And in this plan, there are 302 residential units versus now we're at 118. And there were no detached units. So if you'll see here, these are the townhouse units, and those, it was all townhouse units up in this area, and then these were all fourplex and eightplex, which the CBD does allow for multifamily. But it was just too much for, once we submitted, the feedback that we received was that it was too much. And so we went back to the drawing board at the city's request.
Any further questions? You got a nice list there.
I
so
know,
just wanna
I
make
do.
sure.
So let's see. No, I think. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions of the applicant before we move on to the public testimony? Okay,
Mr. Mayor,
all right. So we're going to talk to those that are for it. We have Phil Hull. Wish to speak? So you don't need to speak? Okay, all right. Okay, and then does anybody on Mr. Gar, Mr. Thompson, did you want to speak? Are they? Okay. Mr. Guard, did you want to speak at all to this?
yes, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, if you could speak up just a little bit more, that'd be,
Okay, I'll get a little bit closer. We appreciate, Mr. Mayor, City Council, for you guys allowing us to speak today. I do want to clarify something. I looked at the plans for those townhomes, and they are between 1,700 to 1,900 square feet per side. So just for the record, I wanted to clarify that. We did switch our plan from what it was before, just a better transition from those single-family homes in Saddlebrook on the north. And we feel like this plan gives it more openness, less density, less residents, and fits better with the city of Star and the plan. And we're excited to work hand in hand with the city of Star and create a great community in there. So we appreciate you guys giving us the time this evening. Thank you.
oh, Mr. Guard, can you provide us with your address, please?
Yes, it's 2487 East La Grasse Circle, St. George, Utah, 84790.
Okay, and I forgot to mention that. So when you come up to speak on the public hearing side, please state your name and your address for the record as well, okay? So then we're going to move on to those that check mark they are against and would like to speak. And we have Miss Boyack, is it Boyack on there? Barbara? Miss Boyack? She's remote. Virginia? Can you hear us?
Yes, I am. I'm here. Thank
Okay, please state your name and your address for the record and go ahead and you begin your testimony. And as a reminder, we got 3 minutes.
She's muted.
Are you still there, ma'am? Can you yeah. There you go. Can you hear us now?
She's mute.
I'm muted at the moment.
There we are. Okay, go ahead and start, Miss Virginia. Just give us your name and your address for the record, please.
Sorry for that. My name is Virginia Bayou. My address is 143 South Long Bay Way, Star, Idaho.
Okay, and go ahead.
Okay, so I have so many concerns, but if I only have 3 minutes, I just would like to ask, how is it that all of this, as well as some of the other developments going on in Star, are not accounted for by the developer in terms of functionality and making bigger roads and lights? And I'm so concerned. I drive Canada all the time from my address at Pinewood Lakes, and it's a nightmare pulling out of Pinewood Lakes, much less going west and turning right on Canada. It, you know, the speed limit there, I'm sure you're aware, goes from 35 to 55 within, you know, very short period of time. Anybody turning right on Canada has to like really kind of take their life in their hands, taking that right to make it. And now we're going to have all these other people going onto that road. I just don't understand why there isn't either a light supposedly there, or it just is so frustrating. Like, it's already so bad, and you have another at least 336 if you only had 2 people per home in this new development, much less all the rest of them that are on Canada right now. How that is supposed to, how's that going to be handled? I mean, I understand there has to be some growth, but it's pretty bad right now. I don't know if many of you travel that often, but it's a rough one, and there's going to be accident after accident, I'm convinced, on that corner. The other thing is, I don't understand, you know, there's a walkway that they're showing on this development along State 44. Would any of you walk along State 44 ever? I would never do that as an adult, much less with a child or a dog or whatnot. It seems very unsafe to me. The other thing is, I understand, I haven't read through the whole CBD itself, but it just seems to me that people that live in Star moved here with the intent that it stayed somewhat of a small town environment. And I've only been here literally for 2 years. I lived in Eagle for a couple of years before that. And I wish that we could set the example of how to do it right, instead of just plugging along and just, you know, the city taking the money, and yet we're not setting up the infrastructure for it to be a success. That is just a huge frustration for me. So I guess that's all I've got to say.
That was all you had, ma'am? I'm sorry.
Yes, it is.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, then Mr. Beck, is it Beck? I'm trying to read the writing. Would you like to speak, sir?
I just been listening to the comments and stuff, and I don't need.
You don't need to speak?
No,
Oh, okay, all right. Just want to make sure, okay?
I was gonna try to get a clarification. I can talk to them.
Okay. All right, and then those that are uncommitted, Mr. Stuppy?
Richard Stuppy, 22153 Canada Road, directly across the road from the west end of this property. I don't care that there's 118 houses. I don't care that their open space is more or less a ditch that was designed to pull the groundwater off the property so they could farm it. So when they fill it in, it'll just cause the groundwater to come up. But I do want to complain about the first opening on Canada Road. It's right square down my driveway. My driveway is 200 foot long, and I get enough idiots in the middle of the night going down that road. So if they could move it 40 feet one way or the other, I'd be appreciative. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Grooms? There you go.
Mayor and council, I'm Chris Grooms. I live at 12383 West Hedenbrook Drive, which is just north of this subdivision on Deer Haven in Alderbrook subdivision. We have watched Silkwood and Ensley Court go in within a quarter mile of our house, and there's no open space. I look at this map and I see one little tiny corner that's open space with a cover. We already have people from other subdivisions coming to our subdivision to use the one playground, which is fine, but you're adding a couple of hundred more homes between these three subdivisions. And I don't see a playground here for kids. I don't see much open space except along the ditch that drops off 10 feet into water. That's not open space to me. That's not play area. It's not usable space. I don't know how you can say that that is usable space or open space. Right now, it's just weeds. If you go farther north on Canada, it's just weeds. They are counting that as open space, but it's not. Next, I'm worried about Canada also, same as Virginia that spoke earlier. We have, excuse me. It is really difficult to turn north off of 44 onto Canada. As she said, you take your life in your hands. You worry about cars coming up behind you and running into you because they're going 55 and you're stopped in the only lane of traffic. There should be at least a turn lane there. Why is it, why is it that farther west on Eel Road, which is a dead end, that they have a turn lane? Why is it that Stoffel, which is further west towards Milton, is a dead end and has a turn lane? And you're put thousands of homes here and there's no turn lane. It baffles me. And then lastly, coming from the fire side, I've got 20 some years in fire and fire investigation. 5-foot setback to me is ridiculous. If you have a fire in one, it's going to jump to the next one. And you're going to lose at least 2 units, maybe more, depending on how quickly the fire department can arrive and their effectiveness in putting out that fire. I have a really hard time with the ability to reach out your window almost and shake hands with your neighbor. Noise carries too well from one to another. You need at least 10 foot.
About 15 seconds.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Todd.
Evening, Mayor, City Council, Councilwoman Salmonson. Good evening, Chris Todd, 53 North Plummer Road, Star, Idaho 83669. I signed up uncommitted or decommitted, so Tamara, don't be mad at me. When we're looking at this, a couple of things that jumped out that I just wanted to get some clarification on, I guess. Is there a sidewalk going along State Street from Highbrook to Canada? It looked like there was one on a couple pieces, but they didn't connect, so I just wanted to see if that was going to go. One comment was this was a concept plan. I believe this is a preliminary plat hearing, though, correct? So this is a little bit more than the concept. Part of their approval or that they're getting tonight too is for commercial uses within the CBD area. According to our CBD area that was a part of, I believe, if I'm not, my mind is still somewhat there, that assisted living, senior living, and all those uses are conditional uses. So in essence, you need a conditional use permit is what we had talked about. Is the development agreement taking the place for this now? I would like to know that for future projects that we bring forward. It seems like an awfully big assisted living retirement area, but I think it would be successful because that's what I'm trying to do. Another one is the hotel. The parking area for the hotel, I think it's a 4-story hotel. I don't know how many parking spots there are next to this hotel, but there's no way that that fits it. I'm trying to picture like the one Hilton Garden Inn and Eagle and kind of the size of their parking lot. I didn't really go through and count the parking spaces, but just something to look for. I was happy to see that ITD put in there a number for the development agreement for the city of Star, and congratulations on getting that as part of kind of the guinea pig, I guess, but also something I think that'll help the transportation in this area goes along with kind of what Virginia was talking about, is being able to capture some of this development dollars and using it locally. I believe it's over $700,000 that'll go to the city of Star per their letter. One thing that I did want to comment on tonight, though, that I've been fighting for almost a year now, is to get the speed limit from Highbrook to Canada lowered. I've tried a year, I've tried for a year to get that done. Finally, at least somebody other than Dan Sample is putting this project forward, and hopefully Tamara and the land group will join us and join the city in this effort to get that speed limit lowered. Being that it's in the central business district, that needs to be taken to 35 miles an hour now, not 6 months from now or a year from now. We paved our project, we're getting ready, but when commercial guys come by and look at that and they go, well, people are they're hauling butt through here, 55 miles an hour, how are you going to slow them down? Well, they say that they're going to try to lower the speed limit. I think with this application, and if it's approved or some rendition of it is approved, I think that that gives another feather in the cap for the city to ask ITD to get this done. The original traffic study or traffic speed study that was done warranted the speed limit being lowered here. It's already been done. It doesn't need to be done again. No taxpayer dollars need to be spent on the speed study. 35 miles an hour, that's all I got.
So just to speak to what you're talking about the speed, is it was all ready to go down to 35 until certain
Yes,
individuals got involved in legislature and stopped it.
exactly.
And so the city's all behind trying to get this speed limit lowered here all the way through downtown back to Highway 16
Yes.
to be safer. So we are working on that. It's just we're working with higher powers to try to make it move forward.
Yeah.
On that end. So
Thank you for your time.
all right, that's all that signed up to speak. Ms. Tamara. Can you pass that to Sean, please?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Tamara Thompson again for the record. I will attempt to address the comments as best I can. As far as ITD and ACHD, again, we do have a traffic study. Kittleson and Associates did the traffic study, and that has been turned in and approved by both ITD and ACHD, and they've provided their comments. There are substantial impact fees for both ITD and ACHD, and I do know that ITD has plans in the works for improving Highway 44. And the one, if you've seen the improvement plans, it has where you kind of like a Michigan left, I guess, where you go past the Canada intersection to come back around. So you're not turning left across traffic. So there are plans in the works, and there's also going to be a light at Highbrook very, very soon. Albertsons has submitted their drawings to ITD and ACHD, since it's a joint light at that intersection. Those construction plans have been submitted. So that will be in the near future. That will help traffic. As far as open space, our open space, and I want to say it again, the ditch that runs along there is being piped, and then we will have that pathway over that piped area. So it is usable open space. It's not a ditch with weeds. And our calculations are 21% open space and 17% usable, which exceeds the city's requirements of 10% open space. And I think it looks a little smaller than what it is, but it's this park at the end. I'll get this again by the cul-de-sac is over half an acre. So it's not super small, and it has room for like a little soccer field there, and a covered picnic area. I'll address the 5-foot setback. The 5-foot setback is consistent with townhouses, and the fire department did not have, there is a letter from the fire department in your packet, and that was not an issue for them. For Mr. Todd, there is a sidewalk, the entire length along State Street, that will be added. And to go back to the preliminary plat, you can see this dark line right here that runs that entire distance there on the preliminary plat. The development agreement, our intent was to submit with potential commercial users and to have the development agreement as the mechanism to approve those in certain areas. We did designate that the senior housing would be within, and let's see, I have a phase plan here, within this phase 2. So if you'll, I didn't mention this before, but we do have this broken into 3 phases. So the first phase is the residential, and phase 2 is this western half of the property, or it's a little less than half, and phase 3 here. And the phase 2 is where we're asking for the senior housing, or the assisted living. And yes, we would be happy to help with any efforts on lowering the speed limit on Canada.
Highway 44.
Hi, I'm sorry, Highway 44, yes. I'll ask my client if you're okay with that. Dustin, is there anything that I missed that you would like to add?
Just one thing, Mr. Mayor, City Council, Tamara, we appreciate that. On that eastern end of those townhomes where the pavilion is, our intention is to put some kind of a play structure or something in there to give them an opportunity to play in that area to help address some of those green space questions that came up earlier. So if that's something that is the wish of the residents and the City Council, we're happy to implement that and make that a little bit more of a usable area with playground equipment. And that's all I have.
Great, thank
Tamara,
you.
can I ask you a question real quick? How much right of way are you providing for ITD's widening? And would that widening include a right-in decel lane to Canada Road going westbound?
Mr. Mayor.
There's enough space for that?
Mr. Mayor, I believe the distance that we are dedicating more right away along the entire frontage of on the Highway 44 side. And I forget that dimension. I think it's over 12, less than 20, somewhere in that dimension. We are doing a decel lane at the approach in the middle of the property, and I don't recall if one was added there or not. And unfortunately, I didn't bring the traffic study, but we are doing one at this location.
So the one going into Canada, that is a challenge, and I've seen it. And so if ITD were good with a decel lane, would you put a decel lane there for it? Because your residents up there in the townhomes are going to be utilizing that to get in. And so I think a decel lane would be appropriate in that location there to make sure people turn safely, because since it's only a 2-lane road for the foreseeable future. So
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I would think since there is one here at this location, that it shouldn't be an issue at that location. And
put one in?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then so we need to discuss the proportionate share agreement on how that's going to get paid. Sean, I mean, any thoughts on a project of this nature that's so mixed? Do we have that proportionate share of the $700,000 paid in phase 1, or do we break it up between a couple phases, or what do we do here? What's the council's thoughts on it? Because we need to have some sort of agreement on this thing.
Mr. Mayor,
Let this go.
you're asking for opinions on that. When we get to that portion, I'm perfectly fine with pay as you go, but pay early. Like,
Right,
pay
so-
then go.
So for example, on Rosti, they had 10 phases. This has 3, but we only did it on the 9 residential phases of Rosti.
Right, because
And
number
based
10
on phase.
is something that was able to come back and be addressed down in
Right.
the future, which would change the proportionate share if it got changed there. So I would say if there's 3 phases,
I wouldn't, in my opinion, I wouldn't include phase 3 into that because commercial can take 10 years to build. And you will never see that proportionate share for that. The proportionate share is mostly based on your new residential that's in there as well, because there's nothing committed in those other areas yet.
how about 50% phase 1 and however you want it phase 2 or 3?
And it's up to the council to try to figure that out too. So, I mean, you guys should, thoughts?
I wasn't thinking of that yet.
Well, I wanted, before she went and sat down, we went in deliberations, I want to make sure that we're talking about it with the client.
Mr. Mayor, keep in mind that each commercial use as it comes in will be reviewed by
Separately.
staff and by ITD. So depending on the use, that'll determine
What they're,
how to break that out, I would believe, and I can.
well, the commercial, but we may need to have a hearing on the development agreement. I mean, we're going to have to talk to ITD on how they determine the proportionate share on this because each commercial use is going to have its own proportionate share agreement. It's from what I understand from what ITD's been doing lately.
So, Mr. Mayor, I would suggest that if you do make a decision tonight, the findings in the draft development agreement will come back.
With the
Spotty.
answers.
And at that time, prior to that, I can
Okay.
get with ITD and figure out how to break that down.
Okay.
The developer will get a chance, or the applicant will get a chance to review that, and then we can kind of take it from there.
Are we good
I
with
like
that?
that approach.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I've got a couple of things to add if you're ready for me.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask another question? Is it still open?
Yeah,
for
it's still
questions?
open. Yeah, you can
Okay.
ask questions. Absolutely.
So, regarding the conditional use permit that you're requesting in all of this, I noticed, let's see, there's also something for a fuel station, but I didn't see that on the map. Can you just point out where that is?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Solomon, I don't believe we have one shown specifically on here, but it could be a use.
Okay, so when you listed these conditional use permits, they can be anywhere within phase 2 or phase 3. Is that
Other-
correct?
Almost correct. Other than the assisted living, we're saying that that would only be in phase 2.
Okay, thank you.
And that if something came back for phase 3, then it would have to do its own conditional use permit for that
Okay.
specifically, just putting it on that side of the.
So if we approve this tonight, I guess are we approving that the location of, say, the hotel is in that spot, or could that be changed? It could be changed. Okay, thank you.
And again, Mr. Mayor and Council, the development agreement is what allows us to approve those conditional uses now. They still have to come back to staff for design review and certificate of zoning compliance, which will notify the agencies and go through. It just doesn't come back to you for approval.
And the issue with, I think it was it Chris Todd that brought up about the parking with the hotel? Or somebody brought up about the parking in the hotel. They would have to meet the city code requiring that anyway before they can build that. So they couldn't just build it with the minimum parking that shows on there, so.
Yeah, what the applicant is showing right now is actually it's a conceptual plan. The lot lines are in place with the preliminary plat, but we allow flexibility in the design depending on when the uses come in and where they go.
Okay, any further questions of the applicant?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Keys, last minute.
So would the applicant agree to dedicating easement to the city for the entire length of that walkway along the drainage ditch that you're covering from Canada all the way to Highbrook, so that the public can have use of that in the future?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Keys, this is definitely one of those I'd want to talk with my client about. Let me tell you some negative sides of that, unintended consequences, let's call those. I have seen it before where if that happens, the person doing all the maintenance or the entity doing the maintenance and the upkeep of that doesn't get to control it any longer. And you get people out there smoking or causing damage, but they can't throw people off or kick people out of there. You also have some issues with, and it's not as big of a deal on this one, but I know on some others, if people want to picket or, depending on what the uses are, the shopping center or the residences really lose control over the area that is, number one, theirs that they're maintaining. And so I've really seen a lot of issues with that and problems. As long as there isn't anyone being disruptive, then by all means, they're going to be able to access that. There's not going to be signs that say that you can't be here, but it really does tie their hands if it's a public easement. So I would say it can be a public, it's open to the public unless that person in the public is doing things they shouldn't be doing there.
You raised some good points, and it's frankly, it's something we've been asking a lot of developers to do, and this is the first time I've had pushback. But you do raise some points that perhaps we need to strengthen in our ordinances when people do use those public easements, that they have to behave themselves. But I'm still interested in getting that easement. I know Mr. Gar is on the call, so he might be able to speak to that now.
Go ahead, Mr. Gar.
Yeah. Hey, Mr. Mayor and Council, there is that pipe underneath that sidewalk. So as far as easements go, we would have to look into that a little bit more. We're happy to have public access, but with that piping underneath, I'm not sure that we can even give full access to that area anyway. So we'll have to do a little bit of research on that.
Okay, so can we say that it would be allowed if the entity that controls that pipeway easement is good with that?
Or can we say that basically you want the public to be able to use it?
Yeah.
Right. So if we say in there that the public is able to use this pathway to access the property.
Absolutely.
Just add that to the development agreement.
Right.
Okay.
Yep, we're happy to do that.
Okay. And then also I'd like to add, you talked about the potential of adding a playground. I'd like to add that playground to the development agreement as well. Let's see, you talked about the senior housing area being limited to phase 2, but I have a letter in front of me that shows that you're asking for that to be a permitted use in a significant part of phase 3. I would like to remove the permitted use in phase 3, and if that's something that is justified in the future, to have you come back before the council for that. I'd like to limit that to phase 2 only at this point.
That's what we had.
Assisted living?
Excuse me?
The senior living?
Correct. Yeah, there's a.
You have something with phase 3?
Yeah, there's a letter here, and it says senior housing is proposed as a permitted use, and the area is highlighted in green, and there's a significant portion highlighted in green that's in phase 3.
Just put in the development agreement that says it's limited in phase 2.
Phase 2,
only.
correct.
Well, do you want them to have the ability, like they proposed, to bring it back as a conditional use permit if it is anywhere but phase 2? That's what they were proposing in their application.
Yeah, I think that'd be fine. The request in the letter was asking that it be permitted in that portion of phase 3, and it's frankly it's about a third of phase 3. So in this map.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councilman, I see what you're talking about. There is something in my letter, in my narrative initially, where we were putting it right here in this portion of phase 3 as well.
Well, this is theirs. You want me to pull it up?
No, I have it.
Oh, you got it?
I mean, I'm looking at what he's talking about. I think that's okay.
To limit it to phase 2,
Phase 2, limited in phase 2.
less
It's a
brought back
CUP.
as a CUP.
And then beyond that, I think it sounds like there's still a few issues that need to be cleaned up with ACHD and ITD. And I guess I don't need to condition that happens, but I expect city staff to work with you to make sure that that gets addressed before anybody goes to permit with this.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Keys, I like the way that it's referenced. As long as it is a condition by reference, then whatever those final conditions end up being, then those get added as as referenced.
Okay, and then the last thing I have is actually just a question. Do you know how close we are to getting between this development and Albertsons and everything else going on there to getting the warrants that are required for the light at Highbrook 44?
I believe it's very close, and what Albertsons has submitted on their plans includes that. Like,
Okay. You want me to answer that for you?
If you know the answer, I'm just.
So Albertsons went out to bid already to the general contractors, and in their bid, they're the ones that are supposed to be paying for that light according to ITD. They're at Highbrook, and so when Albertsons gets built, if they do that here in the next couple of months, they'll be putting that light in at Highbrook.
Okay. Actually, there is one other thing I want to add to the development agreement, and that is assuming that city staff and the city can get with ACHD and approve that one public road going all the way to Deer Haven. I'd like to condition this on that happening if we can achieve whatever permission we need from ACHD. I think it's important that we have that connectivity.
Okay. Any further questions of the applicant? Or the staff?
Just for the record, because the issue of setbacks came up, the applicant is not requesting a reduction in the side yard setback in the R6 to R11 zone. That side yard setback between buildings is 5 feet, and that's what they're proposing. So I just wanted to get that on the record, that they're not asking for a reduction in the side yard setback.
Yeah, in fact, as I recall, in the new development code, I think the setbacks in that zone are only 3 feet.
That's for a detached.
For detached.
Yeah,
okay.
but since this is attached, they're 5 foot.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Nielsen?
So this is the first time that I've seen conditional use permits come before us as part of a development agreement for approval. So it's a little bit out of the order in my experience only. I don't think that I picked up on that. And typically on those conditional use permits, I know I prepare differently for those permits than a little more in-depth detail discovery as far as comparing the application to what's in our code and things like that. I did not do that particular thing because it appeared that this was a concept plan, which the applicant alluded to here to begin with tonight. So I feel just a little bit ill-prepared personally on that sort of thing. So I guess my question, and perhaps mayors to you and staff, is that something that we can plan on having happen in the future, or how did we kind of arrive at that approach here this time?
Sean?
I hate to be the one to say, read your staff report, but if you would have read your staff report, it was spelled out in there.
But he's asking, how did this application arrive to doing conditional use?
With all due
permits?
respect, I read the staff report. and-
Development
and
agreement.
It's easy to think of things one way and read them and not understand that sort of a change, so.
Yeah, so the development agreement allows you, I mean, you guys make the decision. If there's some uses that are proposed by the applicant that you do not feel, or that you feel needs additional review by you, you can take that use out if you want to. So keep that, that's your ability. But yeah, if
So he's asking how we you're saying that the development agreement gives them the option to go ahead and ask for these conditional uses to be put in there. So,
Yeah, that's what the code.
Okay.
Mr.
Defines
Mayor,
as
if I
development
can, and Sean wasn't here, but that is the same with the development agreement for the Albertsons, has commercial uses that were built into it.
But not conditional uses.
Yeah, yes, they
You
were.
said commercial.
Well, commercial conditional use, that what would be a conditional use in the CBD zone is built into that development agreement as well.
Now, if there are other uses that are conditional that are not within her list, then they would have to come before you as a conditional use permit. It's only the uses that they're asking for. That would be part of the development agreement.
okay, any further questions of staff or the applicant?
Yes, I have a question for Sean. So regarding the setbacks, on lots, let's see. It would be block, sorry, I lost it. So it was oh, here we go. Block 1, lot 2 through 13, and block 2, lots 1 through 8. You put a note in the staff report saying you would recommend a 15-foot rear setback instead of what was in the application. Was that what you were referring to just a few minutes ago that has changed, or is this something different?
No, I think staff recommended the 15-foot to be consistent with the homes to the north of those detached, and I think the applicant is in agreement with.
Yes,
that
Madam
15 foot.
Mayor, Councilman
Right.
Solmonson, we issued a new letter. We gave a supplemental letter after getting the comments from the city. And in that, we didn't initially designate the difference between a detached unit and an attached unit and what those dimensional standards would be. And so on this slide, we've given those, and you'll see here on this rear setback that we're keeping consistent there. So if you need to add that as an additional, but we have a supplemental letter in the file stating that that's what the intent is.
So we'll adopt those
Okay.
that they've got on there within the development agreement.
And then also, I think it's in the report somewhere that it says that the private street maintenance needs to be maintained by the HOA. Does that need to go into the development agreement as well?
That and our criteria in the zoning ordinance that talks about how that maintenance and cost is broken down, we'll put that in the development agreement as well.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. And so we need to put that into the agreement also, right? Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions of the applicant? Speak now. None? Staff, any further questions or comments? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So now we'll close the public hearing. And we'll come to the council deliberations. Someone speak.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Hershey.
thank you. First off, let me get back to it. I have to get back to my mental note here. Sorry, I started scrolling around. I would say, when I first looked at this, there was a few things I was concerned with. Mostly the townhouses. I didn't want them all to be the same exact cookie cutter size. So it was good to hear that there's going to be different sizes allowed, because it would just, I don't believe it would be our look and feel of Star if they were all exactly the same. That would just be like a mining town in Pennsylvania. You ever been there? They line them all up. I just don't like seeing that. With some of the conditions that Councilman Keys brought up, it took care of other problems, things I'm least concerned with. One thing I was making sure is, and I might have missed this, the hotel is, if it is approved, it's not going to break our height ordinance
It cannot, unless they,
unless they come back.
right.
And also the senior living facility, I'd like to know more about that, because we haven't had one. I'd like to see more of that, but the most important thing I'd like to see before I'm comfortable approving this is I want to see that cul-de-sac if it can punch through. And the reason being, it's several reasons. One, I don't want this entire little neighborhood to go up through Gambrell to get to Albertsons, because Albertsons is coming. I just, and that's exactly what I would do if I lived in there. That's exactly what I would do. Second, getting out to Canada, no question, is tough. Getting to 44, no question, is tough. And that's because just the way they lay out, and there's two big cities between us. When that light comes into Highbrook, that's what people are going to shoot for. And that area is designed to take it. It's going into a large grocery store, and it's going to connect over to this, except you'd have to come up and around. So everybody trying to get out of that neighborhood also is going to want to shoot for that light. And it's going to funnel them through the other subdivision. I understand connectivity is needed in subdivisions. I fully understand that. But in this case, it's like we're filtering them that way. I always feel like we're pushing them. I'd really like to see this with that connection. And I'm willing to wait to hear absolutely every entity tell me no before I make a decision on this. End of report.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Keys.
so just to clarify, Councilman Hershey, are you suggesting that we table this?
I want to hear. Thank you, Councilman Keys. I would like to hear everybody's thoughts before I make any sort of motion.
Mr. Mayor, I look at this application. First of all, I'm really encouraged to finally see some commercial development coming to Star. I've lived here for 10 years, and we've seen things come and go. We saw Albertsons came to us a few years ago, and now they're finally, looks like, on the verge of building. I'm encouraged to see additional commercial development being planned for Star. I think this is a great place for it. I think, given what the comprehensive plan says, we have a residential on the north side that the comprehensive plan, frankly, would allow us to go up to R10. I'm encouraged to see R7 there. I agree with Councilman Hershey that I think it's important that we get that we do get that connectivity to Deer Haven. I don't know if staff has had an opportunity to work with ACHD. I wouldn't be uncomfortable tabling this until we get that a little bit ironed out. I think it might also give the applicant the opportunity to come back to council and get these other issues with ITD and ACHD ironed out as well. I'm generally supportive of this project. I think that's important because it would respect the ECAMP plan that we put in place here a few months ago. And I think that connectivity along or creating, if you will, kind of a backage road through that part of the city is going to be important, more so in the future than now. But I think it's important now as well. Generally, I'm in favor. If there was a motion to table, I would likely support it. Thank you.
Well, my goal is to make a motion to table, yes. And we can show my cards.
Further discussion?
Mayor Chadwick.
Councilman Nielsen?
So I'll just say that I generally feel supportive of this application as well. I think the applicant's done a good job presenting here tonight. I can tell that they've really taken into consideration a lot of the work that we've put into our planning. And I appreciate you, Mayor, asking them to go back to the drawing board, because you were absolutely right. I don't think that original plan would have got much traction here tonight. I've already stated that personally, I don't feel prepared for this. I think there's more investigation that I want to do on those conditional use permits. So, Mr. Hershey, I would encourage you to achieve your goal here tonight.
All right, well,
Any further comments there?
I would agree with what is already stated. I'm generally in support of this project as well. I think that we came a long ways tonight with a lot of pieces in this development agreement. And, again, I'm new and still figuring this all out. So, but the traffic is a main concern. And so I would prefer to see this tabled And so we can work through, you know, the traffic issues to make, then, you know, deny it tonight. So, thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Hershey.
I propose.
Or
that we-
move.
Yes, thank you. It's already been, yeah, okay. I move that we table the Notira subdivision, AKA sample property. I'm going to say 30 days.
August 18th would be the next available hearing.
Is that one full of things already?
No.
Okay, it is now. Until April 18th.
August 18th?
No, I'm sticking with April. No, August 18th. Specifically for the traffic issues that have been identified and the conditional use permit. Extra information has been requested.
Second.
And all the conditions, well, the conditions already stated earlier that we all seem to be in agreement with.
So we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, this application is tabled till August 18th to discuss, so we can find out, we'll direct staff to get information from ITD and ACHD and additional information regarding the conditional uses as per requested in that motion. Okay. All right, so let me do some switching here real quick. Is that, you know? Okay, we're gonna move on to item 5B, the Whitener property. And again, I need to ask council. I'm sorry, I'm going to open up the public hearing on this. I'm going to ask council, is there any ex parte contact regarding the Whitener property?
No, sir.
Okay, hearing none, we're going to bring the applicant up, and I think you gave me site plan, right? That's what you want me to pull up?
Whitener, there you go.
Okay. And if you want to point at stuff, right here is the mouse. Sean, can you get me the paper, please?
Would you like me to wait?
No, you can go
Okay.
ahead. I'm sorry.
All right.
Sorry,
all
go
right.
ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Jay Gibbons, I represent Phil Whitener, who's the owner of the property, and South Beck and Baird, 2002 South Vista, Boise, Idaho. So it's nice to be back, and especially in person. As you recall, we met on March 3rd and were tabled to the 7th of July or 7th of April, excuse me. We were going to have the council was going to have a workshop and work through some issues on the original site plan that is in your staff report and marked as such. And then the plague hit, and the council did have a workshop with me. I believe it was May 19th. I brought back an updated concept addressing many of the issues that were on the initial concept, and that concept is what is marked as updated in the staff report. What isn't shown and what is on the screen at the moment is the concept plan that was prepared in response to actually the comments out of the workshop itself on May 19th. So I did make some updates, and I will explain those things to you. As you remember, we're here for a rezone to the CBD. It's on the 10206 West State, which is just down the road on the north side of State. I have some hard copies of the site plan if you want something to look at bigger than they're 8.5 by 11.
Sure, absolutely. you, sir.
Thank you.
So what has changed and been updated on the plan before you for this evening's public hearing is that reflects the things that the council asked for and those things to be clarified at the workshop, which is you asked that we move the retail portion, the retail buildings themselves to the street fronts. So we did that. The big retail buildings, of course, have been moved towards North Aspen Lakes Way as well as First Street. The retail on the north side of First Street is up against the street frontage itself, and then the outbuildings on State Highway 44, which are the smaller, the 3,500 square foot buildings have been moved towards the street frontage in both aspects. Also, the sidewalk that is shown along State Street now is out of the right of way. ITD had asked for that previously, and so we made sure of that. Also, at the workshop, the concept plan that we presented at the workshop, I hadn't worked out. We didn't have enough parking to meet code. And so by moving the buildings towards the street frontages and making some adjustments within the site plan, we're actually able to hit 110 total spaces. I believe 100 are actually required per the 26,000 square feet of retail that we have. We obviously have a couple thousand square feet less retail because I adjusted the building square or building footprints, kind of standardize them there. It works out very well. And instead of, so from the first concept we brought had a big cul-de-sac running up into the middle. It had a whole different form of attached single family in the residential portion. We changed that for the workshop presentation, and during that workshop, you also asked for some examples of the housing type that were proposed, what those would look like. So you can, because it is attached, those are all single family lots. There are a total of 20. We can't get more than that. We could go less, but we're trying to get some residential to provide that transition buffer between the retail development itself and the parking up to the single family development that's Rockbridge subdivision to the north, and still maintain adequate open space to provide a buffer from the private street access. These are alley loaded product or rear loaded. So we have a service drive, a private street that goes all the way around. That is on a separate lot, so that it also will provide access to the parking for the retail north of the First Street itself. Let's see. In making those changes, we were able to widen the planning island between the alley and the backside of the access drive to the retail portion, and that allows us to provide pedestrian connection from that residential element to and through the entire retail development itself. So it has become much more pedestrian friendly. And so with that, our original proposal was roughly 50% or more residential and only 40 to 50% of retail. And with our work through the workshop and through tonight, we're basically a minimum of a 60-40, and it could be larger than that per se, but we think we have a marketable product from a retail space itself as well as a residential aspect. And I do have some JPEGs of our product type itself. It is a local product. It is what the residential portion is from a lot width and depth perspective. The residential product is similar to, this is a Lonesome Dove 2 project in Eagle in the River District. It's on the south side of Highway 44, the bypass there at Eagle. And I do have a hard copy. So there are three of them. There are basically frontages of the buildings. There's a common mew, and this is as an alley loaded. You can see the garages are on the back next to the street. It is a 2-bedroom, 2-bath product with actually a home office space as well. And so I think that potentially plays well to the CBD district and live, work, and what have you, that we're trying to achieve. And the reason that this is a concept master plan at this point is to gauge the interest of what the city is actually looking for use-wise in the CBD to determine that. And so, of course, if we gain approval of this site plan as a PUD, we will then, of course, be back with any conditional uses. We'll back before you. We'll have a preliminary plat with the landscape plan and the roadways and everything, because there will be continued work with ACHD on First Street and Aspen Way, and with ITD with the connection in regards to State Highway 44 as well. ITD did submit some comments, ACHD did as well, and we have to go through their process officially and formally to get a connection to Highway 44, ITD I'm speaking of, because they aren't typically equipped to really respond to just a concept plan. They're going to want more developed plans, construction documents, what have you, to justify, and a traffic study and what have you. And so we're holding off on that until we can get to a point where we have city approval for the concept so that we can take it to the next level and be back to develop something. With that, I will stand for questions.
Council have questions of the applicant?
Mayor Chadwick.
Councilman Nielsen?
Not a question, sir. I just thank you for taking our the workshop that we did, for taking our recommendations and that back. I can tell that you've listened to us and appreciate that. So just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Keys?
so when I went through the packet, I saw that both ITD and the ACHG reports both reflected the old concept, and I'm really curious, have you spoken with them with this new concept, and you know what their thinking might be in terms of what you've done here?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Keys, I haven't spoken with ITD or ACHD simply because of where they stood in the first place, and we haven't changed anything that would merit different comments from either of them, for that matter. And I have a whole lot more work to do with ITD, guaranteed, in order to formalize even where this connection to Highway 44 will be in the end. So hence I didn't go back. We have, of course, been tabled for so long that now it seems like, well, maybe we should have, but at that time we were moving forward, and the workshop would have been the middle of March, and we would have been having this conversation in April per se instead of July. So, but there are more conversations even between the city and ACHD as to where the location of First Street will fall and what that does to our final, our building plan in the end. So we're kind of still at the concept master plan stage. So we don't have a finished product per se. We need to get approval of basically the concepts so that we can move forward and come back before you with final plans and have their approvals and conditions specific at that point.
Okay, and then another question. So I just want to clarify that what you're proposing here are not townhouses, they're single family detached.
They are both.
Or excuse
They
me,
are a
single family
townhouse.
attached. So,
Councilman Keys, they are a townhouse because they're 2 floors, living space upstairs, or the sleeping quarters upstairs, the 2-car garage and the kitchen, dining room, living room on the 1st floor. However, they are single family. They are on individual lots and anticipate to be sold as such.
The reason I'm asking that is in the staff report that we got, it says in here that single family attached are conditional use in the CBD, but townhouses are not allowed. So, period. So,
Right.
but then if you go in the definitions, it says that townhouses or single family detached are a form of townhouse. So it gets all circular in a hurry.
Correct. No, we will be complying with the code.
Mr. Mayor, sorry, it's getting late. I've had a long day. Mr. Mayor and Councilmember Keys, keep in mind, this was reviewed under the old ordinance.
Right. No,
So
I
we've
understand. I'm
hopefully
looking at
fixed
that
a lot of that.
Yeah, and I appreciate that.
Running around.
So, yeah, I have some other comments that I'll make later, but I think those are all the questions I have now.
Okay.
Thank
Any further questions?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I had one. So first, I appreciate you moving the frontage on State Street, that commercial building towards the front. I think that makes, more appealing for our community to have the buildings right up to our main road. But I did look up the parcel lot number on Ada County, and I noticed that the house that is there now was built in 1910. And I was wondering if there's any historical significance to that building. Just curious.
It's not on any county's list at this point. It has never been on there. That's not saying it doesn't mean something to somebody. But
It was remodeled extensively here about 8 years ago, 10 years ago, believe it or not. So I don't know if it would even meet the definitions for the Historical Society.
Mr.
anymore,
Mayor,
so.
in order to be on Historical Society, if I remember correctly, you almost can't do a thing to that house. I mean,
Right.
you got to just Band-Aid it for the rest of eternity. It's, they're quite restrictive.
I just wanted to make sure that we weren't, we don't have a lot of old history, like buildings, historical buildings.
We used to have a great hotel from 1930. Nobody's missing that thing.
That was all I had. Thank you.
Okay, any further comments of the applicant? Okay. We had nobody sign up for this one except for. Okay. Do you want to rebut any of that?
I will stand firm. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. So we'll just, any further questions of the applicant? Comments? I have some questions and comments if you hang out there with staff too. Are we going to do a development agreement with this one as well?
We have to, so we can work with ITD on the proportionate
On the
share.
proportionate
Yeah.
share?
But I'm just looking back through here. It's been a while since I've looked at this whole thing. I don't believe that the applicant is asking for any specific uses through the PUD to be approved now. So
Yes, not at this point. no.
any new uses that come before you, if they're conditional use, they've come
Okay.
before you as normal.
And it would behoove us as a city to require so much of the retail to be built as the residential goes. I mean, that's something I think that's important as well on there. Yeah,
Add a timing component to that.
add a timing component.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else of the applicant?
Mr.
Before we
Mayor.
close it? Councilman Keys?
So, thanks again for your patience with, the COVID and everything else that's going on. So, we had our workshop, and again, thanks for participating in that. As I went through this application, again, I noticed through the comprehensive plan that it's really encouraging mixed-use style buildings to be built in the CBD. One of the things I also happened to I guess I kind of tripped over it, but this parcel already has zoning, and the zoning that it has fits what you brought us tonight pretty well, with the exception of dialing in the development agreement. Frankly, I think it fits the current zoning better than the CBD zoning, because of the fact that it doesn't have mixed use buildings for the residential part. I don't know what you want to do with that, but I'm just going to throw it out there. I would encourage, when you do come back, to take another look at doing mixed use style buildings that do have some commercial component on the bottom floor. I know that we work pretty hard on that comprehensive plan, and I think that we want to follow it to the greatest extent we can. I would also encourage you to, and I think we talked about this in a workshop as well, is to put some substantial screening between the existing neighborhood and what you're proposing here. Again, glad to see commercial finally coming to that area. I think it's been overdue for a long time. I think we're finally making some progress with ITD that's going to let us get some access into those lots as well.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman Keys. I think that, primarily, we've asked to rezone it to CBD because the comp plan says it needs to be. And if we don't do that and we come back with any of the use, now we don't comply with the comp plan.
Right.
So we're trying to get everything aligned with the city vision, so.
Well, and our plan does call for residential uses at the fringes of the CBD, so this is consistent with that.
Okay. Any further comments there? Questions?
Sorry, I have one more. So in the staff report, I noticed, Sean, that you recommended one additional amenity be provided. Are you willing to do that?
Oh, certainly.
Good.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Once again, any further
Okay.
questions or comments of the applicant? Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. We will close the public hearing and go to the council deliberations.
Mayor Chadwick,
Councilman Nielsen.
I am in support of approving this tonight with the conditions specified in the staff report and that extra amenity that was called out in staff report as well. I guess that's all I have to say about it.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to second that. I think when I see what we originally had and where we are now, I think it's a big difference, and it really shows that, sitting down at the workshop, tabling and putting some time on things can give you a better product. And I believe we've gotten that today. And I agree with all the other statements of the extra amenity as well. But I am generally for this. I do realize there might be some things that have to come back and be changed, but that'll be addressed if that happens.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comment?
I don't believe I made a motion.
Oh, I thought you did.
That was just a
Sorry.
comment and a
I
comment.
commented,
We're
but he started
deliberating.
his
I'm sorry.
comment with,
My-
he was seconding my comment, not my
You said,
motion.
yeah, you threw me off. Okay, any further comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Keys.
I think this proposal is vastly improved over the original proposal in terms of, from the perspective of what I think, not only what the city wants, but what I think we need. I'm looking forward to getting the preliminary plat in front of us. And other than that, the comments I made to the applicant, stand for the rest of my comments. Thank you.
Okay.
So I will, I agree with all that everyone has said here. I'm in support of this application, and I think that I appreciate the applicant working with us through the process to get us to this point. And that's all I got. Thank you.
Mayor Chadwick,
Councilman Nielsen.
I move that we approve the Whitener property RZ-20-04 and PUD-20-05 with the conditions of adding that additional amenity, all other conditions stated in the staff report. Also throw in a condition there that Councilman Keys talked about, that the preliminary plat comes back with detailed plans for buffering between the subdivision.
Okay, we got a motion, we got a second.
I second that.
Okay, we got a motion, a second. Any further discussion?
Can we add in that motion about the second amendment? Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh,
that's been,
amenity.
it's
Oh,
been
you did put
captured.
that in. Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? I'd like to make a comment too, though, as part of the discussion, would you add to your motion anything about timing of development between residential and commercial that we talked about a little bit?
You know, we-
Or,
So do we need to do that now, or does that come back with the preliminary plat?
Should be now with the development agreement if you're gonna do it.
yeah, because we'll have a development agreement
All right.
attached that will also
So-
include ITD's proportionate share.
So I'm happy to amend the motion. I'm interested, council, in your thoughts and Mayor Chadwick on what that timing ratio ought to be.
Well, 50% of the houses are built and we get at least a couple of the retail buildings going before the other houses get built. I mean, oftentimes what happens is you get into the residential component of this and the residential
Right.
sits for years and nothing happens,
Right.
but it will put some urgency into trying to make sure.
So at least those commercial buildings up on State Street
Right.
probably.
Yep.
So I'll go ahead and amend the motion to include that we need those buildings along State Street to be completed concurrent with 50% of the residential housing. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah.
Okay. And then we wanted to add something about ITD,
And just make sure that we get that in the development agreement for ITD's proportionate share.
and then we add into the development agreement
Yeah.
ITD's proportional share according to our recent resolution there.
We have a modified motion. Do we want to modify or?
I have a
approve?
modified second.
Is that how- Sean, you got a question?
I get, this is kind of a new one for us with this ratio. So just to make sure we're all clear, so I can come back with a good condition. So do we want them to plat the commercial lots at the same time as the residential lots, or do you actually want the commercial lots to be built on before you release that second 50%? Does that make sense?
Yes, built.
I'd like them to, in the process of building.
The two front
yeah.
buildings built, and that they could be their spec or they can be, but just built. Okay. Got it.
Okay, and you modified you approved the second. So we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Oh, I thought you were getting ready to say something.
I am.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you. Did you have a thumb drive?
Doesn't want to lose it again.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Okay, let's take a 5-minute recess real quick to use the facilities. And then we will get moving right on to the next hearing.
You got it.
Look at the sign-in sheet and see if they're gonna do it all remotely. Get moving. So it's right across the street, so it's right next to Brunel's, where the old house is.
This doesn't really show it. This is the old property. So you're gonna have the. Good, how are you? Another vacant property.
How about yourself? Well, yeah, you can't do that. Been thought about going over to gamble?
We have the applicant for this one. Oh, they're online? All right. All right, Mr. Hershey. Start without me. Yeah, we can. All right, we're going to get this Star City Council meeting back in order. The next item on the agenda is item 5C, the Ridley's Huron River Commercial Sub, Les Schwab. And we have, our applicants are actually online for this, so we can put them all three. Barbara, off of mute. Again, I'm going to open up this public hearing. Do we have any ex parte contact from the council on this hearing?
No, sir, Mr. Mayor.
None.
Okay, hearing none, we are going to turn the time over to Mr. Jared Mitchell. If you could please state your name and your address, folks, when you speak to us online, that'd be fantastic.
Jared Mitchell, 1850 West, 2100 South. That's 2100 South. Salt Lake City, Utah, 84119.
So we're having a hard time hearing you.
Okay.
Is it their volume?
Bear with
I
me.
think we can turn it up right here. Hang on a second. Hang on, Jared.
Mr. Mitchell, did you attach a different microphone?
I am going to put on a Bluetooth, see if that works better.
Okay, go ahead.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me better?
It's a little bit light. If you could just, I know it's going to sound odd, but kind of yell into your microphone.
Okay, no, I
For us, so everybody
apologize.
can hear it online. That'd be great.
Thank you for your time tonight, and I apologize for the lack of sound that we're getting through the speakers. But I do appreciate the accommodations tonight. You know, it was our intent to be there in person, but with the rescheduling of the meeting, required us to, or made it not possible, unfortunately. I'm with Associated Food Stores. I represent Mark Ridley and the Ridley's family with their development.
Hey,
Star.
Jared, hang on 1 second for me.
Okay.
I may have you call in onto this line right here.
Okay.
Well, he should be able to dial into the Zoom call as well.
dial
and
into the
use
Zoom
telephone
call?
instead of the internet audio.
Do you have a Zoom phone number link that you could try to call into?
Yeah, let me see if I can get onto that right away.
Barbara, you should get a, oops. Him showing up there, hopefully here in a second, dialing in to that call. Oh, people are telling me they could hear him online really well. It's just us.
Well, it's gotta be our speakers, the back room.
So the mayor's adjusting audio. Jared, could you give us a test?
Yes. Can you hear me any better?
Unfortunately, no. Not sure he knows what he's doing back there.
Is this any better for you guys? Oh.
I think he has called in.
All right, let's has he called in? Okay. Are you, Mr. Mitchell, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Say again.
Can you? I'm on my cell phone. Does that work any better?
Yeah, so mute your computer.
Yeah, just disconnect audio from the computer, and the cell phone did come through a little better.
All right.
All right,
Is that
try
better?
that.
Can you guys hear me?
It's a little bit better. We'll go with it.
Okay, I apologize for that.
Okay, do me a favor, state your name and your address again one more time for us, please.
You're on mute, Jared.
Hang on, Jared. You're on mute if you can hear us. There we go. Now it looks like you're off of mute.
Okay, thank you, guys. I apologize for that, that inconvenience.
Hey, you've used up all your apologies. You don't have to keep doing that. We're okay.
All right. Jared Mitchell, 1850 West, 2100 South, Salt Lake City, Utah, 84119.
Okay. Go
All
ahead,
right.
sir.
Sorry, I'm just pulling up a different computer. So, yeah, so I'm with Associated Food Stores. I represent Mark Ridley and the Ridley's family development there in with the Heron River development that you guys have going on there. We are presenting tonight the proposition of a rezone and a preliminary plat, as well as a conditional use for a component of that development. Currently, the development is, or the property is zoned R2 residential. We're proposing that it be rezoned to CBD commercial in order to accommodate the future development of the rest of those lots there to accompany the grocery store that you see going up today. On the line with us, we also have, as was mentioned early on, we've got Michael White with Cushing Terrell. He represents Les Schwab, that is a significant component to that development for one of those lots. It is lot number 6 that is in question. There are 4 other lots beyond the grocery store, Les Schwab, the grocery store and Les Schwab. There's 4 other lots there that are posed to be future development that are requiring this rezone. We have what you'll see hopefully in the future there soon is a mix of commercial use, from restaurants to small retail to other commercial services, looking to really make it a good focal point for the community, and something that's very accommodating and synergistic with the rest of the development around around the city, and especially around that parcel specifically. So with that, I will open it up to any questions that you guys may have in regards to this development, or in regards to the rezone or the replat. I will also invite Michael with Cushing Terrell if he has anything he wants to add to that introduction.
So we'll have Mr. White talk to us right now, and then have the council ask you both questions. Is that the way we should do this, Sean, right? Okay, so Mr. White, are you online?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Can you state your name and your address for the record, please?
Absolutely. Thank you. My name is Michael White. My address is 7584 South Teller Court, Littleton, Colorado, 80128. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council. I appreciate you being patient with us, since we can't be there in person this evening. We certainly wanted to be. Les Schwab is a company that doesn't need any introduction. Everyone, I'm sure, is familiar with the brand and the standards of customer service and quality that they uphold. We are excited to come into a community like Star. This is very much in line with the company's values, the type of community that is the city of Star. We've applied for a conditional use permit in conjunction with the zoning efforts from the Ridley's team, which is automotive service. We intend to construct a what we would call a prototype store. This is very much like any other Les Schwab store that you would see getting built currently in 2020 and 2021. It's a 6 service bays and a retail showroom. We do also incorporate an exterior bullpen for tire storage. I noticed in the staff report that it was not mentioned as to the type of material, but that will be a CMU structure that is painted with a similar color scheme to the store itself. So the bays will face east, as you can see from the site plan. Thanks, Sean. into the development as well as into the Highway 44 corridor. And that's the basics. It's a relatively simple operation, and you can see there our landscape plan. We do intend to integrate seamlessly with the neighboring lot and are taking steps to coordinate that with the release team.
Okay. Is the third person part of the application on here, or just speaking to it, Sean?
So the third person online is he's the civil architect. It's Sean Young with AWA Engineering. So if there's any questions in regards to the way the parcels were laid out, he is there to comment.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right. Does council have any questions of the applicants?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Keys?
I do, but I first have a question for staff. What does the current development agreement say about this area? I know that it was included in the development agreement when Heron River was first approved, but I'm not sure what it says about this.
Councilmember Keys, what the original or the existing development agreement, it says it's very vague, and it acknowledges that there would be non-residential uses, commercial uses, C1 type uses along the frontage of State Street. It didn't really give any more guidance, and so one reason I recommended to the applicants to move forward with the CBD rezone was that the original uses were approved as part of the PUD for the residential Heron River. And so without having a specific zoning designation of commercial, we don't have any setbacks. We don't have any design or dimensional standards. So that's why it was suggested to go to the rezone for the whole property to CBD. Then within that, the Les Schwab Tire Center is a conditional use permit application within that CBD.
Okay, thank you. I suppose probably the biggest question I have is about noise mitigation. As part of my preparation for this, I did a Google map search of every Les Schwab within 50 miles of this one. And I saw that there weren't very many of them that were in residential areas. Most of them were in purely commercial areas. And I'm wondering if there are issues with noise and noise mitigation that you can share with us about putting a tire store, I mean, literally, right across the street from a really nice residential area.
Yeah, I can address that. Thank you for your question. The orientation of the building is specifically placed to mitigate the noise as much as possible. It is a CMU structure. The air compressors are rotary air compressors, which have a lower noise impact. We've also cited the CMU tire storage and trash enclosures at the south end of the site to offer some additional buffering from the residential piece. I'd like to also add that the background noise from the highway is probably of a higher decibel level than what you would see at the exterior of the building with all the doors closed.
Okay, and then so if I were to bring my 22-foot truck in with my 30-foot travel trailer on it, where would I park that, and how would I turn that around and get it in and out of this facility?
Well, there is going to be cross-boundary access with the neighboring lot, so you'll have some additional maneuvering room by being able to cross over into the other lot if necessary as a pull-through. There is a concrete pad at the south end of the building, in between the building and the trash enclosure that is available for the possibility of larger non-standard vehicles. At the same time, the store just down the road in Eagle is a full-service store with a large canopy to support non-standard vehicles. So, we can accommodate it at this location. It's probably not the best, but if that's what you bring us, then that's what we're going to work on.
Okay, so with that pad being between what I think you're calling the bullpen and the main building,
Mhm.
If there are going to be impact wrenches and other air tools used there, what would be the possibility of having a CMU wall put between the main building and that tire storage to be another noise barrier to the subdivision?
Well, that's a question we'd have to raise with Les Schwab's construction and design team, but that is a possibility. Absolutely.
Okay. Or potentially do maybe take the berm that's there and make that higher. Although I think you're probably looking at using that for retention basin, but
Yeah, there's a drainage swale that wraps around the west side of the building and down to the south where we'll have an infiltration basin.
okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions of the applicant?
Yes, I have
You
one.
guys- Give me, hey guys, pull your microphones closer.
Okay.
Thank you.
So in ITD's response, they had one objection, was about the proposed approach shown on the landscape plan as noted in item 2. But I didn't see that anywhere. So what is that referring to?
Is that referring to the right in, right out, Sean, off of Highway 44 in the center?
Yeah, the landscape plan did show a right in, right out at that, basically where the Heron River sign is, where the fire truck used to park all the time. It's something that the mayor and I have talked to ITD about. Doesn't sound like they're necessarily against it, but you have to go through the proper permitting procedure to get that. I think that's what they were commenting on, is that at this time, they're not approving that access with this application. So it's something that have to be approved at a later date.
Okay, thank you.
And it may change with our traffic impact study that we are doing.
Yes.
So,
Okay, I just want to make sure it wasn't, directly next to this lot, and it was
Yeah, it's
not.
further, yeah,
Okay.
it's further in.
okay, any further questions of the applicant? Okay, hearing no other further questions, I'm sorry, we have nobody else signed up to speak on this hearing. Barbara, you don't, huh? No, I didn't sign up. Would you like to speak? Yes, I would. Okay. State your name and address for me. Are you on that one? Yeah, well, that'll be on the next one.
Good evening, all of you. My name, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. My name is Jeannie Nell. I live at 1011 South. Where do I live? 11887 West Pinewood River Lane in Star, Idaho. And I have been here since 2002 in January. I am an Idahoan. And I have nothing against Les Schwab, but we've already got 2 tire places here. One being on State, one being on Star Road. And we've got an auto parts store right down here. And then we've got a car, and like Steve's Auto Care, which is my son. But so for our town, do we need that many right now? Is my big thing. So that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Mitchell or Mr. White, would you like to rebut?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I can say that Les Schwab is very careful in their selection of store locations. In fact, they investigated and actually walked away from several sites in Star until they've landed on this one. They do a lot of research as far as demographics and a lot of research as far as their sales potential. And they wouldn't go into a store location if they didn't feel it was warranted. They take it very seriously. They only create just a few new stores every year. So rest assured that from Les Schwab's position, they are very confident that this would be a successful location. I'd probably like to also add that Les Schwab is a community-focused company, and any community that they go into, there is a lot of community service and philanthropy that accompanies any location that Les Schwab would construct as an added benefit to the community.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay. Anything further there, Mr. White?
No, I don't think so. Thank you.
No, no, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much.
Okay. With that said, we will, or does let me ask this real quick before we close the hearing. Does the council have any questions for staff before we move on? Okay, so we're going to close this public hearing and we're going to move on to deliberations. I know it's late, but
Mayor Chadwick.
Councilman Nielsen.
I'll go first here. So, I appreciate the comment that was made about, do we need another one in town? I kind of had the same thought. I'm like, wow, but not necessarily from, we want to keep anybody out. Just that, wow, it's surprising that Star has that kind of attraction for that many of that type of business. So I think it's interesting to me. I appreciate the applicant's response there too, that I know Les Schwab being a very large international company, I'm sure you guys have done your homework. And so if you feel like you got a chance out here in Star to make it, along with the rest of us, and I guess I feel supportive and would welcome Les Schwab to town. So.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Keys.
I'm generally supportive of this. I've been looking at this application. I am concerned about the noise, the adjacent subdivision. And I think I would like to put a condition in the CUP that they put some type of noise mitigation near that truck pad between the main building and the bullpen. I don't know if that's a CMU wall or what it is, but I think some type of noise mitigation there is warranted. Other than that, I think I'm ready to approve this.
Okay. Any further comments?
Just one from me, sir. Generally, the noise mitigation was something that I was concerned with as well. And also, just for Ms. Nail, the reason I fully am with you and Councilman Nielsen as well, that do we need this? But I don't like government to tell business what they can be. I like them to tell them where it can be, but not what they can be. That's a business decision, and I do not believe a government agency should be interfering any more than on design standards and flow of traffic and things like that, things that we evaluate. So therefore, I personally have my own feelings, but as an elected official, I have to stick to my my beliefs on what government should and should not do. But yes, I would want a condition on noise mitigation.
Okay.
Okay, my turn. So thank you. This is the first application I've seen that everything, all of the agency responses were all approved for the most part. I think everyone. And, there's nothing in here that would warrant us to do anything other than to approve it besides the conditional use permit. I agree. I think that we do have a lot of auto stores here, and it is surprising, that that we could support another one. But the business, they know the market, and I think if they're willing, and feel that they can succeed here, I don't see any reason to deny that. So I am also in support. Thank you.
Yeah, entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Keys.
Let me get my. I'd like to make a motion that we approve release Heron River Commercial Sub and Les Schwab RZ-20-06/DA-20-09/PP-20-09/CUP-20-03 with the condition that we get some additional noise mitigation between the main building and the bullpen on the Les Schwab property,
You want to put it as a condition or in the development agreement?
in the development agreement.
Okay. We have a
Second
motion.
that.
We have, was that a second? I'm sorry.
Yes, sorry, that was a second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Yes, sir.
I believe the condition for the noise mitigation should be within the conditions for the conditional use permit rather than the development agreement, since the development agreement is for the entire.
Oh,
I agree. I
I
amend my
agree.
motion accordingly.
yep. Okay, we have amended motion. Do you second that amended motion?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Okay, we're going to move on to our last public hearing of the night, 5D. The public hearing of, for 10040 West State Street annexation with a development agreement. Again, I need to ask council if we have any ex parte communication or contact.
No, Mr.
No,
Mayor.
sir.
No.
Hearing none. Mr. Travis, do you have something that you want to plug in or anything, or, okay? Have a good night. Let me pull up my little packet here. Okay. The floor is yours, sir.
Travis Stroud, 1980 South Meridian Road, Suite 140, Meridian, Idaho. Mr. Mayor, Council, let me start off by saying I don't feel nearly as popular as I did last time I was standing here. No, I mean the crowd. So. Yeah, exactly. This time I feel it's pretty straightforward. Unfortunately, coming back with just the corner lot, we're doing a rezoning. Obviously, we don't have a user right now, but in an effort of expediting time, having the rezone in place so we can react quickly to a commercial user makes a lot of sense. We're going for CBD, which is consistent with your comp plan. Willing to do a development agreement. As far as the cross access, we are in concept willing, but I think it's probably more likely that the adjacent owner will need to grant us the cross access because we don't have the room to relocate that access point anywhere within ITD standards nor to do the length to do the decel lane. So while we are fine with cross access through drive aisles and parking lot, I think it's probably more pertinent that the adjacent neighbor is going to be granting us cross access with the a relocation of curb cut because they can accommodate it. We are asking for, we're willing to do a development agreement. In that development agreement, we're wanting a drive-through. The reason being is, especially with this whole COVID thing, drive-through is probably a high likelihood, and there's a lot of users that weren't drive-through that are now. So we feel it's probably pertinent to have that in there. Other than that, I think that's it. I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions of Mr. Travis?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Keys?
So we received a letter from the Adjacent Homeowners Association and they expressed a few concerns. One of them had to do with irrigation water. And apparently there's some history relating to the supply of irrigation water from their pressurized irrigation system, utilizing your water right onto this parcel. And have you talked to them at all about entering into a pressurized irrigation agreement with them to get access to that system? Apparently, according to their letter, they're turning it on and spigot's hot and ready for you to use, but there's no written agreement. There's no way for, I suppose, for you to pay your share of the maintenance of that system and the water shares and all that other stuff.
You know, this is the first time hearing of it. No one's reached out to me. More than willing to basically pay our share of whatever. If we're utilizing it, then absolutely more than willing to talk about that. This is the first time hearing that it's on and it's ready for us to be used. My thought was either I work with them on something if it's readily available, or I go to you guys because it is just 1 acre, one commercial building, and work on a deferral to use potable water till something more comes, more feasible comes into place, but more than willing to do that, more than willing.
Okay, and so I'm likely to add that as a condition of approval, that you'll work with them to either
Pay our
to
prorated share.
figure that out, either abandon the use or come up with a pressurized irrigation agreement or something.
Yeah, we'll do one or the other. We'll either abandon it so it's not an issue for them, or come to terms.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions?
I want to add, this is a max footprint. We don't know what's going to be there. That's just the largest that we could do in park.
Okay,
Do you see any issue with a write-in, write-out only? I noticed that in, I think it was ITD's report, they were saying that that's all that they would agree to. I know, again, this is just a annexation request, or sorry, it's zoning.
I'm going to give you the developer response in me that I always have issue with write in, write out. But I know that's all they're going to give me. They're going to permit it as write in, write out. The reality of it is, until it's medianed, it's going to be used how it's going to be used. But I know that's all I'm going to get from them.
And so you're willing to follow that? Thank you.
I think that's all they're going to give anyone.
Yeah, okay.
I think, so, I'm sorry.
No,
didn't mean to cut you
that's
off.
all I had. Thank
I
you.
just wanted to follow up on that. Is that access going to go away if if that development to the west of you develops, and then the right in, right out will go down there?
Yeah, we're more than willing that if the developer or whoever thought it was going to be me, unfortunately it's not, but in the future, if someone comes to me with an option that works, yeah, we're more than willing.
Okay.
It's obviously going to end up on their property somewhere, and they're going to have to accommodate desaling and everything else. And it's going to have to be a win-win, work for everyone. But if a win-win can be achieved, we're definitely open to it. I mean, cross circulation is always usually a benefit to commercial users.
Right. And with that east-west, was it First Street we're calling it up there? Is that what it's called? First Street. How does that line up with your property and the little cutout there on Seneca Springs if it were to go all the way through and connect?
It would be outside of our property.
It'll be on the outside
Yeah.
of the property?
Yeah.
Okay.
But we would anticipate we would have access to it where it's going to be a public road. Or I'm assuming it's going to be a public road still. So,
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's planned to be a public road.
yeah,
Okay.
so we would anticipate we would be able to have access into the property from the back off of that if indeed it did happen.
Okay. Any further questions of the applicant? No, hearing none. Okay. We'll go to the public hearing spot. We have Mr. Marv West here to speak. So hang on, go up here just real quick for me. Just give us your name and your address.
I'm Marv West. I live at 10174 Highway 44 Star. That is between the two vacant properties that is in question tonight.
Okay. So this one,
Seneca Springs, he's got the little corner
right,
is all. And I have no issues with that.
okay,
I have issues with the other.
okay.
My
We
issues
can-
is.
Well, we can't talk about
I
that one.
know,
We're-
that's the whole thing. I got here
On
too
that one.
late. And,
All right, thank you, Mr. West.
by the way, we have a break.
We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
We're in the public hearing. All right, that's the only person that signed up to speak. Anybody online sign up to speak? No. Okay, Travis, did you want to come back and?
No comment really.
Okay. Any further questions of Travis before we, or staff, before we close this hearing?
Mayor Chadwick, I'm just curious, do you still have options on the rest of that parcel out there, or is that? What is the future of that?
Unfortunately, just through the whole process and what we went through, the seller of the property didn't feel comfortable continuing on to go forward to coming to some sort of win-win on what could be done there. So he said he was gonna explore other options plus, and best of luck to him. So, but no, he didn't want to hang on through the rest of the process. He felt pretty discouraged and that maybe there was something better out there, a use that wasn't, which I think we were amending the use to be something different. I mean, the biggest issues was the access issues to solve on there. So it could be something different. Unfortunately, I just think he has been down this road too many times and wants someone that's just going to come in and say, here's your money, I'll figure it out. So maybe that person's out there, but it's not me.
Okay,
Thank you.
any further questions of the applicant or staff? Staff have a question or a comment?
Mr. Mayor and Council, I just, one of my recommendations is that you consider in the development agreement, in addition to the ITD proportionate share agreement language, but also to require cross-access easements to the west and to the north for future connection.
Through drive aisles.
Yeah, we can figure out once the development comes in for a zoning certificate, we can figure out exactly where they need to go. But I just want to make sure it's a condition
Right,
that we
'cause
do get that.
I do think though that ITD is, if I'm reading it correctly, I think it, and I would encourage you guys that for our sake, it's more pertinent to make sure that whatever curb cut is approved, that it's conditioned to give us cross access, because I think the ITD is giving us some leniency here because would be our only access point for the time being. But it couldn't accommodate any additional development. It would have to be relocated somewhere on the other property.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Keys?
so, I'm only going off a letter that the HOA sent. So assuming that your water right is supplied by their pressurized irrigation system, they own that berm that directly abuts this parcel.
They do.
On the east. So you may be able to get access to that system there, but I would highly encourage you to approach the HOA and figure all that out.
Yeah, again, if it's readily available there for us, then there's no reason why we wouldn't want to utilize it.
Okay, any further comments or discussion? Oh, okay. All right. With that said, thank you, Travis.
Thank you.
We'll close this public hearing and move on to deliberations of council.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Keys.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve this, we approve 10040 West State Street annexation, Seneca Springs, AZ-20-10/DA-20-08, with additions to the, this is a development agreement, including future ITD proportionate share, including cross-access agreements, and including and working with the neighborhood to resolve the irrigation issues and potentially come up with a pressurized irrigation agreement.
Okay, we got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, that motion carries.
Welcome to Star.
All right. Thank you, Travis. Okay, we'll move on to the last item of the night, which is the approval of the request for proposal for professional services for the South of the River Sub-Area Plan. Try to find that here. So what we have before you is, you moved Council Keys here a month and a half ago, I think, about somewhere in there. 2? I was trying to do a month and a half. provided us with the details of that sub-area plan, which we approved. This is now, he helped me write, well, he wrote it for me, the RFP for this plan, so we could get it out to bid. We did do some adjustments to the dates, because the original dates we won't be able to meet. So what we're looking for is an approval to put this out for bid with the dates that I sent you guys an email today. You guys received an email today with the updated dates on it. So if you guys want to discuss it, let's discuss it. If you want to make a motion on it, we can make a motion on it.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Keys,
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the request for a proposal for professional services for the South of the River sub-area plan and the amended scope of work with the adjusted dates.
I'll second that.
we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, you want to just unmute Chris just to make sure he didn't have any comments?
Oh,
Just
she
noticed he
has
was,
some.
I just noticed he was still on there.
Can you, are you, yeah.
You and remuted all in the same second.
Chris, can you unmute yours? There we go. Do you have any comments or anything on here, Chris?
No, it's a pretty straightforward RFQ. As you'll, I think as you know, this isn't a lowest cost. There's near the end of it, there's the can't remember the latter half, but anyway, there's the kind of scoring mechanism that you'll use to determine who the most qualified contractor is. So it's not just based on price. Then when you decide who's the most qualified, you'll negotiate a price at that point. But anyway, I've had a chance to review it, and it's should be straightforward enough to. It is straightforward, and it should be good enough to get what the city needs.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Yeah, that motion carries. So we'll get this out right away, Mr. Keys. Tomorrow. It's going out tomorrow. Okay, that is the last item on our agenda. Thank you all for participating and going along on this hearings tonight. So have a good night. Thank you.